This is Pat Soundbites Unplugged, the podcast where all the artists go to tell it as it is. Careers, music, tours, and more. And here's your host, the man that refuses to eat squid, Pat Calamari.
Hey, Pat Calamari here, episode number 5. And as I stated earlier, starting this podcast, my thing is a lot of new music that's out there. And I've done a ton of interviews over the last month or so. And one interview is really good. October the 8th, I had DeAcutis on the phone, and Stevie D, as he's known by some, released the album CD featuring the incredible Corey Glover from Living Colour, Torn from the Pages. Now, if you don't know anything about Steve, he is a well-known sought-after producer, engineer, and he's an incredible multi-instrumentalist and an incredible guitar player. He's been in a lot of albums that he's got his hands been involved with. Carmine Appice, Cyndi Lauper, Gladys Knight. There's a list. He's got his own studio called Sound Spa Studios in New Jersey. Go check it out, soundspa.net. It was a great chat, great music. At the time, it was number 12. His album was number 12 on the classic rock chart and was working its way up to the top 10. Lots of great songs that I've already played, and I continue to play. Final Resting Place, Your Time Has Run Out. I mean, you gotta love Corey Glover. His guy's got incredible vocals. Steve did do a show at the end of September at the Debonair Music Hall down in Teaneck, and all the proceeds went to, I believe, St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So how cool is that? Gotta love the guy. Working on getting him to do a live sit-down in our studios at WBXO up here in Beekman, Poquag. So I have a lot more of these I'm going to keep posting, whether they're brand new ones this week or going back maybe a month or two, because pretty much they're all relevant to new music, and I want to do everything I can to support these guys. I did post the interview on the radio station a couple of times, but I don't think I really posted it on social media. So here the podcast is the perfect portal and avenue to do so. Please download, sit back, and enjoy this great chat with Steve DeAcutis, Stevie D. WBXO Classic Rock Redefined, in conjunction with Pat Soundbites Podcast Unplugged. A pleasure to have on our phone today world-class producer, recording and mixing engineer, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and incredible guitarist and owner of Sound Spa Studios, Mr. Steve DeAcutis, or Stevie D. How are you, Steve?
Hi, Pat, and hello, everybody out there listening. Wonderful meeting everybody. How's everybody doing today?
It's a great day. We're got a pulse, and we're alive and kicking. And certainly, Steve, thanks for your time. Stevie D featuring the amazing Corey Glover on September 6th released a debut album, Torn from the Pages, on the Mighty Music label. It's available on all digital formats. It's a great record. Started playing his track, Your Time Has Run Out, last Sunday. Going to play more. Encourage everyone to go out and buy it. My good friend Carmine Appice, I talked to Carmine the other day, he said, working on an interview with Stevie D, and he goes, who? I go, Steve DeAcutis. He goes, oh, I know, yeah, Steve. He goes, I don't think he recognized the Stevie D part, but Carmine says, great guy, one of the best to work with. He did a super job on Guitar Zeus and certainly Vanilla Fudge, The Spirit of 67, and you worked the list of artists that you worked with. As I scroll down the list here, Cyndi Lauper and Overkill and Corey Glover and just a ton of artists. And so I guess you're really known as that, the go-to guy. But what folks don't really know is, you're, I'm sure, a musician at heart. And listening to the, meeting Dave Bickler, and you produced and was on Dave's album CD Dark Light, and I said to him, wow, the guitar work, the whole thing is just incredible. So I'll start off with that. Well, you know what? Let me just start off from the beginning, Steve. How did the love of music even start for you?
Well, I always answer that type of question giving my sister credit because she's 4 years older than I am, and her record collection was probably my first music school. So I used to, when she would go out on Friday and Saturday night, I would head to her room and start going through her records and just playing her records. Aqualung was one of them. Jethro Tull. Tapestry was one of them. Carole King. Paranoid, my first Black Sabbath introduction to Black Sabbath, which became my favorite band as a kid. And on and on. The Woodstock record, the live record, and so it just took me, man. Meet the Beatles, and I got the bug. It was like, you're a young man. I guess I was 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever, and when you get exposed to certain things, you find out at a young age what. I think you really find out what you love if you're lucky at a very young age. Whatever it might be. I think back then for us as kids, it was sports. It was baseball and music. Today it's, I guess, more computer based for the youngsters.
Right.
So that was it, man. That was my initiation into the love of music and making music. My introduction to becoming a musician was at the age of 12 when my friend Frankie Sherrier took me to his basement and proceeded to put on a set of headphones. And he had his phonograph next to his drum set, and he put on Honky Tonk Woman and played the intro to it, with the cowbell and the drum fill, blah, boom, boom, and I was amazed by what I was seeing, and I immediately, I don't know if I immediately ran home, but shortly thereafter begged my mother for a drum set, and that started it all. It was that moment, Frankie.
Nice, and then you obviously maybe gravitated to guitar, maybe bass, and just go from there.
First, I went drums, bass, guitar. So I was a power trio early on.
Well, nothing wrong with that. A lot of great power trios in the day and still today. Talk about this great album, torn from the pages and reading different things back and forth. And I found a line that says, "This record has been a long time in the making, very proud of the outcome, and I feel this is some of my best work today." Any reason why it took so long, Steve? Were you just being busy working with other artists, and you just finally said, okay, I got to get my own stuff out there? Were some of these songs that you wrote, you did down the road and just finally said, okay, I gotta take care of myself. I want to, get my stuff out there?
Yeah, making my living as a mixer producer, the luxury of being able to dedicate time to your own music, your own work is a tricky task, and so that that's part of the reason it takes so much time to get things done. I mean, you need to really be disciplined to be able to pull that off. Pull off juggling your clientele with your own record, your own work, and you basically have to treat it like I basically was my own client. So when I worked on my record, I document the time and basically pay myself,
right?
As if I'm working for someone else. So you got to put it on the calendar and just treat it like it's another session. 2009 was probably the inception of Soul to Stone, one of the songs on the record. The music 2009, the music to that, the melodies, and even the chorus, I believe, was written. So yeah, I started writing the tracks as early as 2009.
Wow.
And I believe the writing commenced around. I'll have to look at maybe the dates on the files, but I'm pretty sure I didn't write anything for this record after 2014, but I could be wrong. Your Time Has Run Out was the last song written on the record, which is the first track on the record. Yeah, and it just became the record, the concept became a life, very personal and life documentary, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It became a very sentimental, and there's stories about my childhood and stories about, there's even a 9/11-ish reference in This Is the Time, inspired by the concept of 9/11, not so much directly that event, but those types of beyond unfortunate events. And then there's Haunted, which was a tribute to my mom passing in 2010, which kind of really kicked this whole project into gear and set the tone. It was an unexpected passing. My mom and I were very close, as so many sons are with their mothers.
Absolutely.
And so that there's a little bit of a.
It took a lot of time, but like you said, you actually had to put yourself on the calendar to find a time and a space, and it's probably the best way to do it. Out of all incredible vocalists that I'm sure you have met, and I know you have worked on Corey's solo stuff. He's just an amazing vocalist that I got to actually see last week again with Doug Wimblish down in Huntington, Long Island. Doug was opening for Collective Soul, and I know those guys, and Corey comes on stage, and I've seen Corey do the celebration of David Bowie a few years ago with Bernard Fowler and those guys, and man, what a vocalist. And out of all, you chose Corey, which was certainly a home run. Was there anybody else that you thought in mind, or was there somebody before Corey, or you just said, I got to get Corey?
A good friend of mine who I was in a band with in the mid-'90s that was signed to Sony, John Kolodner was our A&R guy. We had a pretty major record deal together. The record never actually saw the light of day, but it was a great record. Doug Hencethorn initially sang the songs. Doug's out of Indiana and had a band called Healing Sixes, and Jason Bonham was the drummer.
Oh, man.
Doug continues to write and record out there on his own material. So, Doug was the initial singer, kind of like a Paul Rogers meets Chris Cornell kind of vibe.
Nice.
And Corey, I was just going to have him do Your Time Has Run Out, just have him kind of do a cameo on the record. And as great as Doug is, and believe me, having him on your record is also as high level as you can get as far as just a good soulful rock, blues-based vocal and heartfelt. But Corey, I think Corey's just so really just the hard rock thing, with the cult of personality and just the way Corey's vocal sits over the hard rock. It was a perfect marriage with the kind of tracks that I put together, the kind of energy they have, and then Corey's vocal just matched it and upped the so it was. I thought it would be a great thing if Corey would agree to do the whole record, and he did. And the the rest is history.
Yeah, no, that guy, he's incredible. And I want to also say, as we spoke before we started, Stevie D's Your Time Has Run Out is climbing the charts. It listed at number 12 on the classic rock charts and getting up there to number 10. And you had a record release show on Saturday the 28th down in Teaneck, New Jersey at the Debonair Music Hall. And knowing Dave Bickler, and Dave was there, said, man, it was a great show. I kicked myself that I didn't get down there. I would have loved to catch you and Corey and hearing your music live, but I'll get down to that later to talk about other shows. I'm sure you're probably working on that just logistically with maybe getting Corey involved with Living Color and stuff that he's doing might be a little bit more of a challenge. Steve, talk to me about the songwriting process. Having your own recording studio, I would imagine this really allows your creativity to try so many different sounds and instruments. Was this easier for you as a writer, having the tools in front of you? And does it start with a guitar riff or, the drum or a lyric? How does that all go for you in putting this incredible album torn from the pages together?
Well, I'm a guitar player, so 8 out of 10 times my songs start with some sort of a guitar figure, whether it be a rock riff or a chord progression. So yeah, and I usually work up a track really quickly. If I come up with a riff, a guitar part or whatever, I'll go right in and start to put it down and start adding bass and drums to it immediately to get an idea of where it's headed. And at that point, I'll put up a mic and maybe start ad-libbing over the music. And at that point, you may grab a melody quickly, or you may go through 3 or 4 different revisions of a melody. And at that point, you also may come up with some sort of a vocal, a lyric,
right,
that just happens, which can at times influence the storyline. It could be one line that just sets you off, and you say, okay, we're going to go that route with the storyline. So that, and as far as production, I have many tools here, whether it be sitar, mandolins, 12, 6 strings, 10 strings, piano, Rhodes. I have a huge library of virtual instruments and loops, so that runs the gamut as far as having the ability to experiment. But that can also, you got to be careful with that, because having too many options,
you never get the song done, right?
Yeah, if you're not focused, it could be a problem. So you really got to go with your instincts and try to go quick. Like, okay, what route can I take here, and try not to veer too far off the path of simplicity and where you're coming from. If you're writing a rock record, you got to be careful, not to start introducing too many things that may be seductive, but you may be going a little bit too far off the beaten path. And being a producer and having all those tools at your disposal, that can happen quickly. So again, it's a good idea to keep it simple and go with your gut and get it done as quickly as you can. But also at the same time, you want to make sure your production is as effective as it can be and at the highest level that it can be. So you also don't want to not take a look at certain things that may really upgrade the emotion of what you're trying to put across.
Yeah, no, very, very good point. I'm a vinyl analog guy, and to me that sound is just so organic. Something about going to the record stores and grabbing that album and opening it up and looking at the cover and reading the liner notes and the lyrics. And today, Steve, as you know, we live in this digital world, which to me it's just nothing wrong with it. More music-wise, to me, it's like more compact, and there's so many artists remastering their albums. As a record producer and engineer and a musician, what are your thoughts? Are you more of an analog guy compared to digital, or what do you prefer?
I mean, honestly, the media to me is secondary. Whether it's documented on a CD or a digital download or on a vinyl, that to me is secondary to the rest of the process. The important to me, what's important is, first of all, and I mean this is a given, but I'll say it anyway. You have to have a great song with great musicians recording it,
right?
And sometimes it doesn't even have to be great musicians. I mean, is honest. Even I would say a great song with honest musicians is could be even more important than great high level musicians. So it starts there, and then everything else. The microphones, the players, the way a person attacks his instrument, and the engineer, the mics are very important. The source. I was taught very young that everything starts at the source. So if it doesn't sound good at the source, it's not going to sound good
at the end,
at the destination. So
right.
So I think first and foremost, you got to get it right at the source. You got to get a great guitar tone at the amp. You got to get a great drum sound at the drum set, and then you got to choose the right microphones. Or if you're using synthesizers, you want to use a high level synthesizer that sounds good, and run that into high level direct box and mic pre, or however you're getting into wherever you're going. If you're going to tape, you better make sure your tape recorder is in good shape. You better make sure it's aligned properly, and you want to get good levels, and you want to use good tape, a good piece of tape. And if you're going to digital, you got to make sure your converters are high level, your analog to digital converters. And so all of that stuff along the way to the final destination is what's really important. And if it ends up being documented on vinyl, and it's a good production, recorded well and mixed well, it's going to sound wonderful as long as it's makes its way to the vinyl correctly, and there's not too much high end or low end, and all the intangibles that are needed to be in place for vinyl to be done properly. If it's going to digital, same mindset. It all has to be run at the highest level. So I find the destination of the media to take second nature to not as important as everything else along the way. That being said, I love vinyl and I love digital equally, as long as they're both done at the highest level.
Right.
Now, as far as on the other side of the coin, as far as speed and the kinds of things you could do in a digital audio, in a workstation that you couldn't do working on a tape recorder, it's no comparison. I mean, you at this point, unless you're doing a really stripped down basic record, and people are not being too precise with their editing and their tuning and whatever, you could get a record done in a day on a tape recorder.
Right.
Just a bunch of great players, document, play, get your parts down, write them in rehearsal, and get done and get out of there. Whereas if you're in the DAW, if you're in the digital workstation, and you're working towards perfection, which we all get caught up in that, you're have way more opportunities to overthink things, but there's no comparison in terms of how much power the DAW has over the analog tape recording technology.
Having a
Get started, Pat.
It's all good. Having a great chat with Steve DeAcutis. Stevie.
Ask me that question. I got a cup of coffee over here, man. That's all right.
No, I just, I'm trying to think about things, that you're involved with that are, everybody's always saying who's your influence and who's that. But I like to, hear what you have to offer from, being also on the other side of the coin, having your own studio. We're having a great chat with Steve DeAcutis, Stevie D. Stevie D featuring Corey Glover released his debut album, Torn from the Pages, on September 6th. It's available on all digital formats and certainly encourage everyone to get it. You mentioned a few things, and I'm looking at my notes here, and one thing I always ask all great guitar players, and I would consider you one. I've asked Joe Satriani, I've asked Eric Johnson, and a ton more. I ask you, Steve, how do you describe your tone?
I guess I come from the old school of, plugging a Les Paul or a Strat or a Telecaster into a tube amplifier. In my case, I've always been more of the Marshall guy than the Fender guy.
Okay.
I like to think of my tone as just like everybody. I mean, no matter what you play, you sound like, it's always good. Michael Schenker can play through, a Fender or a Marshall, and he's going to sound like Michael Schenker and Eddie. And I'd like to think that I have my place in the history of unique guitar players. Aside from tone, tone-wise, I just strive for something that's not painful to the listener.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I strive for a warm but not dull tone. So.
Well, you do a great job on your album, and certainly you've done an incredible job on Dave Bickler's album Darklight, where it's really caught my ear. And I said to Dave, man, who is playing guitar? And he just jumped right out of his socks to share how impressed he was with you, your guitar playing, and all your magic that you put on his album. Did any thought, Steve, you're wearing so many hats, maybe on your second album, or was there any thoughts on this album, maybe bringing in another producer just to try to get somebody else's eyes and ears on it, or you were just so focused that you knew what you wanted, and it might just be hard to get that interpreted to some other producer to just make it easier that you did it this way?
Totally open to other producers working on my music, as well as other mixers. I basically produced and mixed the record, and so I'm open to both of those options. Luckily, I'm blessed with a group of people that I trust and value their opinions, so I was able to send out rough mixes to select a couple of musician friends that gave me some excellent ideas, who I thanked on the record.
Cool.
And so I believe me, some of the comments that some of my friends made, I used them. So, yes, I credited myself as the producer, but I'm here to tell you that I had some great input from some very talented people.
Excellent having a network of friends out there that you can just send it out and go, what do you think? I'm thinking of this, and what are you thinking? And they, say yay, nay, give you an idea, and that's all great. I think it's great. Let me ask you.
Yeah, definitely. Wake Up Call, the second track. One of my clients, Larry May, who I've been working with for years. He's been coming here for probably 20 years. I played him the track a while back, and he goes, hey man, maybe coming out of that bridge section, maybe rather than going to another verse, go right to the chorus. So that's what I ended up doing. I said, it was a good idea. Thanks, Larry. Stuff like that.
That's cool. Let me ask you this. As an excellent record producer, what are the skill sets needed to do what you're able to do? I mean, I guess the hardest part is trying to really understand what the artist is trying to interpret, and then you just put your magic as best as possible. Obviously, you got to have great listening skills and to digest what the story is or what they're trying to get out to the folks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, in my opinion, if you're going to produce, then you want to, whoever's record you're working on, you want to make it there as good a record with that they can make. You don't want to start imparting ideas that you might like for this because that's what you would do on your record.
Right.
You're going to do a Rolling Stones record. If you're going to produce a Rolling Stones record, you're not going to suggest that Keith, do a faster solo. Keith, do something a little more shreddy.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's a good point. You could certainly influence so much of what you know, but it's really about what the artist wants to bring to the table. So I think you really have to. Yeah, you have to stay so focused on what their mission is in accomplishing this record. Oh my goodness! I want to say, your time has run out. Final Resting Place. Oh my goodness, what a great song! But you did videos for that. You obviously, as I talked before, we live in such this visual world anymore. Were you thinking that it was really important when you want to send these tracks out, that it's got to be, you got to spend the time and money making sure a video is partnered with it?
Yeah, I wanted an immediate visual representation of what I'm doing here. I thought it imperative, so immediately.
Yeah.
I thought, and I'm really glad I did, and I'm going to do another one. So I'm working on the show, the record release. I had a 4-camera shoot there, and we recorded the audio. So I'm working on the live presentation as well, documented. So we'll have that very soon.
Excellent. I did see you had incredible musicians. I saw Kenny Arrington on bass. I saw Benny Harrison on keyboards. I'm not really familiar with the drummer, but knowing that you had those two, you were full steam ahead. You mentioned shows, and I mentioned it earlier before. I guess the biggest headache, or I wouldn't say headache, challenge, but if you're going to use Corey and get your band out there and get the songs out to the folks, is probably logistics. Are you working on that right now, or trying to come up with a plan?
Yeah, working on some spot hits before Corey leaves for his Bowie tour, and then hoping to entertain the idea of a summer tour, whether it be a week or 2 weeks or whatever I can pull together. But I'm absolutely exploring the options of getting this thing out there, and I will get it out there. Great,
and I'm going to continue to support and play as many of the tracks that we can here on my show. There was a note I thought maybe I saw on your Facebook page, Steve. If folks, I don't know if it's still going on or it was just a short, limited thing. If folks go out and buy the CD album, proceeds to benefit St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Was that just a short period, or is that still going on right now for the listeners?
No, my intention is to donate my profits for the first year to St. Jude's.
Oh, awesome, man. That is great. And I know, looking at your Facebook page, you're certainly always giving back or getting involved, biking for multiple sclerosis, drumming for autism awareness. I mean, I certainly applaud you for trying to give back or being part of it and trying to help a lot of these wonderful charities and things that we're dealing with to find cures for. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, Pat. I mean, that's the important stuff, you know. That's really, we're blessed to be healthy and be able to do what we do. We're really lucky and blessed. So
Absolutely. Anything on your bucket list? Who do you listen to, Steve, when you're in the car or home? I mean, I know you work with so many artists and so many different genres. Probably, is there anybody you're listening to besides the folks that you work with, or do you try not to listen so it just keeps you?
Honestly, I don't need to have music on 24/7, especially since I
You're doing it.
do work on it for a living.
Right.
So if I'm driving, there's just a good portion of the time where I don't listen to anything. But I do have Sirius, so I most of the time I'll listen to the Beatles station, and I like listening to. I like 70s music. I like 60s and 70s music. I like, Motown. My fiance has young children, and her daughter's an excellent young musician, and so whenever we're driving, I have the opportunity to listen to what's happening with the youngsters' music these days.
Right.
So I listen. And I don't particularly resonate with a lot of it. Some of it more than others, but I listen to it because it enables me to hear what's happening now in productions and what the kids are listening to, and occasionally I get a youngster in the studio, and it's good to be aware of what they're doing and what's mainstream right now. So I do get the opportunity to listen to the young productions and what the young producers are doing.
Yeah, no, it makes all the sense in the world in the business that you're doing. I hear you. I have a 29-year-old and a 30-year-old, and they've heard everything. I mean, they still look at my 8-tracks and go, "What is that?" But I try to keep my mind open to appreciate what they listen to. Since they've been brought up with pretty much rock and roll and a little bit blues, and I love a little bit jazz. But they just shake their head listening to me. Steve, I thank you for your time. Anything that we can help promote besides your wonderful album? Anything else that you're working on? Anything on your bucket list that you want to do before I let you go?
Would you mind if I just gave you I have a couple of URLs, a couple of website addresses?
Yeah, no, I got that. I'm tornfromthepages.com. I got mightymusic.com. I got Steven DeAcutis on Facebook and Instagram, and your studiosoundspa.net. I think I got them all.
Yeah, so tornfromthepages.com and soundspa.net. That's kind of the two URLs that I would put up top for everything Stevie D. If you want to find out some more stuff, if you're a gearhead, go to my studio page and check out. I got real nice high-resolution photos of all the gear. Feel free to send some emails if you have any gear questions, because that's the other thing we do, Pat. And like you just mentioned, 8-track tapes. We love gear.
Nothing wrong with that.
But I'm working on the next record, and thank you so much, Pat, for your time and for supporting indie music. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. I'm blessed to be able to do that, and I'm going to continue to do that as long as I can. And it's great. I hope you enjoyed the chat as much as I have, and I look forward to getting to one of your shows and saying hi and meeting and sitting down with you. I also do I do what they call I I do the dice game. I'll call it the dice game. I call it 5 for It All, and I meet artists that have a new album out or CD, and if they roll a 5 of a kind, totaling in 3 rolls, I will play your entire album on my radio show. And in a year and a half time, I finally had an artist that rolled a 5 of a kind just this last June in Jersey at the Mayo Performing Arts Center. Guitarist of Collector Soul, Jesse Triplett. And we played their new album, Blood. So I've had Alice Cooper, Billy Gibbons, Cheap Trick, Paul Rogers, Three Doors Down, Night Ranger, you name it, anybody that's got a new album going, yeah, come to my show and let's roll the dice. So we got to come up with a show there, Steve, so we can get you to roll the dice.
Let me know, man. I'm happy to come up. I'd love to hang.
Excellent. Well, best of luck on your new album, Torn from the Pages, Stevie D featuring the amazing Corey Glover. It's on all the digital formats. As we mentioned, it's got its own page, tornfromthepages.com. You can go to the label, mightymusic.com, or you can just check out the stuff at Steven DeAcutis on Facebook and Instagram. Steve, thank you so very much for your time.
You're welcome, Pat. We'll talk soon, buddy.
Okay, pal. We are WBXO, and we are classic rock, and we are redefined.